For our math warm-up today, I have 4 decimals for you to take a look at, and I have underlined a digit in each one. What I would like for you to do is write down the value of that digit. Tell me what place it's in and what is its value. Pause your video and do that now. So our first one, we have the 3 underlined, and the 3 is in the hundredths place. So you should have written down hundredths. And if we wanted to get real technical with that, we could say 300ths. If we take a look at number 2, we have the 8 underlined, and that 8 is in the ones place. So it is just worth 8. Number 3, we have 3 underlined once again, but notice it is in a different place. This time, we're going to write 3 thousandths. And our last one, we have the 2 underlined, and it is in the tens placed. So it is worth 20. Piece of cake, right? Good job, guys. So our math message today, I have 2 grids here that you can use if you'd like, or you can take a look at this problem and use expanded form. But our question is, which is greater, 0 and 34 hundredths or 0 and 248 thousandths? So again, you can use a grid or you can use expanded form to help you decide. Go ahead and pause your video now and see if you can figure it out. So as you can see, I have used the grid, and the first one I shaded in 3 tenths because we had 3 in the tenths place here. And I shaded in 1, 2, 3, 4 for the hundredths. And this is what it looks like. And then we went over here to the second grid, and I shaded in 2 columns for my 2 in the tenths place. I shaded in 1, 2, 3, 4 for my hundredths, and then 2, 4, 6, 8 for my thousandths place. So looking at this particular problem now, which one is greater? We would say 0 and 34 hundredths is greater than 0 and 248 thousandths. Did you get it right? Our lesson today is comparing and ordering decimals. So you might be wondering, why do I need to know how to compare and order decimals? And actually, it depends on what you plan on doing in life, but it is an actual lesson in real life because we compare decimals when we shop. So if you ever plan to do any shopping, you're probably going to be comparing decimals. If you are interested in sports at all, a lot of statistics use decimals, which statistics would be like what you hear people talk about when they say the stats of the game. That would be statistics of the game. Like if we were talking about baseball, it might be a baseball average as far as how many times you struck out or how many times you got on base. Same thing with softball or even basketball. What was the percentage or decimal that you were able to score in the basketball game? So decimals are used in all kinds of professions, especially professions that require you to be very specific. So a lot of engineering jobs, a lot of people in the medical profession use decimals just to be more precise. So how do we do it? Well, we've got a place value chart here that you can use to compare and order decimals. So let's take a look what happens when I give you a decimal and we place it in the chart. So let's say that I have 4 and 17 hundredths. So if we were going to place that in the decimal chart here, or the place value chart, we would put a 4 in the ones place, 1 in the tenths place, and a 7 in the hundredths place. And let's say that I was trying to compare that to the decimal 4 and 7 hundredths. So again, if we take a look at that decimal, we're going to write a 4 in the ones place, a 0 in the tenths place, and a 7 in the hundredths place. So now looking at those numbers in that place value chart, I can look at them very closely because these are the same digit, so I can cross those out. If I look here, I have a 1 that is larger than a 0. So if I were looking to determine which of those decimals is greater than, less than, or equal to the other, it would look like this. 4 and 17 hundredths is greater than 4 and 7 hundredths. So let's try another. So let's say that we have these two decimals here at the bottom. I have 3 and 127 thousandths and 3 and 227 thousandths. If we place those decimals in the place value chart, I'm going to skip a line so we can see the difference here. We would place them like so. And then I would take the second one and plug it in. And now when we look at each of those columns, starting with our ones, we're going to cross those out because they are the same digit. Notice what happens very quickly when we go to the tenths place. My 2 is larger than my 1, so that means right now I'm done. I can figure that out very quickly. 3 and 127 thousandths is less than 3 and 227 thousandths. So another way that we could go about this is to actually place those decimals in a T-chart, which is very similar to using the place value chart. And I would just basically write my decimals here, put my decimal point, and I would make sure to line up my digits. And I would do the same thing with the second one. And I'm basically going to go about this the same way. As you can see, it turns out exactly the same. So if you don't have a place value chart handy, a T-chart comes in handy very quickly. So that's just another strategy that you could use. And we're also going to take a look next at a game that will help you determine how to compare and order decimals. So the game that we're going to take a look at is called Decimal Top It. And as you can see here, this is what the game sheets look like. So we have, this would be our sheet where we would have a deck of cards. We would draw 3 cards. We would decide what order we wanted to place them in the little chart here. And then we would take turns going with our other player that we're playing against. And so we would each form a decimal. So I would form a decimal, and then my partner would form a decimal, and then if you're player 1, you're going to write your decimal here. If you're player 2, you're going to write your decimal here, and then you're both going to determine if your decimal is greater than, less than, or equal to your partner's decimal. And you'll play 6 rounds. So basically, let's say that I picked 3 cards, and my 3 cards were a 6, a 9, and a 2. And maybe my partner's cards were a 7, a 1, and a 9. Okay? And you can determine what order you want to put those in. So the smart thing to do might be to put your largest digit in that tens place and make them go from large to small, that might be a strategy that works for you. So player 1 would place their decimal here, and then we would have player 2. They would decide what order they were going to put their decimal in, and let's say that they chose this. And then we would write the decimal over here. And if we look at those in the chart that we wrote them in to start with, you'll notice that we have a 9 in the tenths column. They're both the same number. If we look in the hundredths column, the 7 is larger. So that means that that decimal is going to be larger. So 962 thousandths would be less than 971 thousandths. And so you would continue to play the game, drawing cards and playing rounds and determining which decimal was larger. And so that's just another way that you can compare decimals. The other thing that you'll want to be able to do is actually put them in order. So if you think about counting, if we were going to put those in order, 962 would come before 971. So if you think about how you count numbers and look at decimals, we just need to make sure decimals are, or the decimal point is in the number when we are comparing that. So again, you can use a place value chart. You could use a T-chart you could put several decimals in a T-chart just like you could in a place value chart. Either one of those would be a good tool to use. So let's kind of summarize what we have done today. We have actually compared and ordered decimals. And we have learned that that is actually a life skill that can be used for real world problems. So not only can we use it in different jobs, but we could use it in real life, even at the gas station, for example. If you are putting gasoline in a car when you get older, you're going to look at gasoline prices, and a lot of times those are going to be given to you in a very large decimal, and you're going to have to be able to determine which is the best price. And we also used grid models. We didn't use expanded form, but I gave you that option. And we also learned that we can use games and charts, T-charts, to compare and order decimals. So there you have it. Comparing and ordering decimals. See you next time.